Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to show you how I made this little macaron plush keychain. So to start off with, I took some blue plush fabric, and this is the colour Aqua by Shannon Fabrics. What I did was took two pieces of this kind of like right on top of each other and just cut them into a circle so that I had two shapes. So on one of the shapes I just kind of folded over the edge and just sewed this down to give a nice kind of seam all the way around to make sure that when we make the plush that none of the edges and stuff will fray off and you won't end up with any fluffy bits going everywhere and kind of ruining your plushie. So you just want to fold over the edge with your left hand and then sew with your right hand to keep that edge down. You can use fabric glue on this if you want to, or you can also hot glue this. It might even be easier with glue than it is like sewing it, but I just sewed it just for this tutorial, and I basically just did this all the way around so that all the edges were folded in. So once you have all the edges kind of all neat and you have a slight hem, what you'll then want to do is take the same colour thread as your fabric and just do little stitches all the way around about 1 centimetre in. You'll basically just want to tack this into a circle all the way around, not like finishing off the stitch at the end, but leaving it open. What you'll then want to do is pull the thread through so that all your fabric will then gather up and make kind of little pleats in the fabric. As you can see here, I now pull the thread and this kind of gathers it all up and makes a nice kind of little pocket at the top where we will put our stuffing. So what you want to do is just make sure that you kind of even out all the little wrinkles and stuff like that, and you'll want to take a small ball of stuffing and just pop it into the top. You could also use a cotton ball for this, like it might be the right size if you don't have toy stuffing. What you then want to do is take your needle and thread and just stitch over that toy stuffing to keep it in that section. You'll want to just put loose threads and stitches all the way along so that it kind of acts as a little barrier or like seat belt to keep it all in place. You then want to just tie off the thread, and then setting that aside you'll want to do the exact same to the other piece. So once you have both pieces you want to put them the right size together, and then taking a white piece of fabric you want to measure it around this shape. Now I sewed this bit off camera and just made sure that all the raw edges were facing inward, and then what I did with that little snake of fabric was attached it to one of the sides. I just kind of placed it on its side and sewed in one of the sides, moving it around with my left hand and holding it in place. I really focused the edge of that right on the inside where we made the little tacking line, and basically just on the edge of the stuffing so that when you folded it kind of on itself at a 90-degree angle you wouldn't be able to see any of the stuffing. So you want to make sure all the stuffing is inside of that white piece, but you still have a little bit of the wrinkles from the blue piece on the outside. Once you get to the end you'll just want to fold these two bits together and just stitch them down to make them nice and flat on the outer side. You'll then want to do the exact same as you did here on the other piece as well. This is quite complicated to explain, but what you want to do is just pop it on top and just stitch it close, kind of like we just did. So I'm just going to kind of repeat myself here, but basically you want to get that white bit, the very edge of it, into where we started those wrinkle pieces. It just makes no sense because it's really hard to explain. But you'll want to make sure that you've got some of the blue bit kind of hanging on the outside of the white so that it looks like the macaron shell is overhanging the filling and that the filling is coming from inside rather than being added on top. So this is quite tricky to kind of get the white piece underneath that blue bit, but with some patience you can get there. This took me about 10 minutes to really sew it in place where I wanted it to be, and it took a lot of kind of moving it around and stuff like that. Like I couldn't really pin it in place or anything, I just kind of had to sew it as I went along just to make sure that the blue bit was on the outside and the white bit was there. So before I fully sewed it shut I left a little hole and stuffed it up once I had about an inch gap left, and then I just continued to sew this up completely, and then I just went over and over and over with those stitches to make sure that they was really on there. So once I had the shape fully complete and all the white bit was securely in place, I then moved on and popped a little face on. Now I just did this with some puffy paint by Tulip. I just used the black puffy paint that I usually use, and I just kind of made the little eyes with my dotting tool. I made sure to get them really wet so that the fabric underneath them would kind of pat down a little bit and be able to help me make a smoother circle. I find adding more paint than what you probably would need is a lot more helpful when trying to do a perfect circle. So I just popped the eyes on using this method, and then with the mouth I just took a little pin and just did a little mouth in the middle of those two eyes. This was a little bit tricky because of the pile of the fabric, but once I got there it was absolutely fine. What I then did was added some highlight to both the eyes with some white puffy paint, and moving on with some pink puffy paint, I just added some pink dots either side of the eyes to act as blush. What I then did once this was fully dry, I just sewed on a keychain to the top of the plush. Now if you're making a big version of this, you obviously won't want to add this, but as I'm making a little one, I figured I would add a keychain as it's just the perfect size for it. So once the keychain was fully added, my plushie, Keychain Macaron little plushie, was then complete. Now I'm super happy with how this turned out. I'm not 100% thrilled on the lighting on this video as the sun kept coming out, which I shouldn't complain about, but it was kind of ruining my video a little bit, and as you can see here, it's really hard to see the white bit inside of the macaron because of how bright it is. I tried showing it up a little bit closer, but it just wasn't happening. But I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. If you did, please give it a like, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video. So I'll see you then. Bye!